So hello, welcome to the video and welcome to Folkestone. It's not such a bad place when the sun is shining, although the sun is shining straight into the lens and it's blowing a gale here. So I'm just going to go around the corner to somewhere a little calmer to record this intro. So would you believe 10 seconds after filming that, it started to rain. Wonderful Folkestone day, sunny and rainy at the exact same time. But today's video is going to have two dimensions to it. The first is that I'll be flying on Jet2. I flew with them down to Tenerife as part of a package deal with P&O Cruises, and they were really good. Now, it probably helped that everybody else on that flight was also getting on a cruise, so everyone was fairly excited. But ever since, I've wanted to fly with them again on one of their scheduled services to see if they're just as good when not everybody is as excited to be aboard. They're a low-cost carrier, but could they be the best of them? And secondly, the reason why I'm filming this from Folkestone is that we are deep in the southeast of England. Indeed, it's hard to get more southeasterly than where we are here. And we're surrounded by airports. There's actually 6 of them. So people tend to assume that it's trivially easy to nip to one of those 6 to go somewhere. But it's really not. The transport system is all hub and spoke based around London. So it's really hard to get to some places that are actually quite close as the crow flies, because you always have to go through London. Yes, you can drive to those airports and often it'll take you less time than it would on public transport, but I try to take public transport wherever I can. The closest airport to me right now is actually Southend Airport, which is only 41 miles away as the crow flies, but it takes 1 3/4 hours to get there on public transport through London. City Airport is the next nearest and is actually the quickest to get to, but it only services a relatively narrow range of major cities and not that many holiday destinations. The next nearest is Gatwick, but that's over 2 hours away on a train. Stansted is next, but that's actually the hardest to get to. Then comes Heathrow, which takes about 2 hours to reach. And then there's Luton Airport, which is actually twice as far away than Southend, but is actually the quickest to get to, City Airport accepted. And that's because there's an onward train from St Pancras in London, which is the terminus that the Folkestone trains arrive into. So as Luton is a major base for Jet2, the planets aligned and a flight was booked to Alicante, which means I get to spend a couple of nights in Benidorm, but I'll save all of that for a separate video. So if you'd like to see if it really is that easy to get to Luton, what Luton is like when you get there, and whether Jet2 really is the best low-cost carrier in the UK, stick around. Hi, I'm Matt and this is Matt's Planet. I aim to entertain, educate and inspire with my travel adventures from planning to execution. I'll show you how you can travel in style for a lot less than you'd think. So subscribe so you can come with me. So Folkestone West was my starting point, with HS1 up to St Pancras. If you ever wonder why the train to Birmingham is called HS2, it's because this was the original high-speed line in the UK. 54 minutes platform to platform, which has been fantastic for Folkestone house prices, it has to be said. It used to take 50 minutes more to get to Charing Cross before this line opened. I had about 12 minutes at St Pancras to get from the southeastern to the East Midlands platforms, which was ample. And on to the train to Corby, the trouser press capital of the world, one assumes, with the first stop at Luton Airport Parkway. It's about 38 quid for a one-way off-peak ticket on this route, so it's not cheap, but the connection was smooth and the trains were both on time. Luton Airport Parkway is not the end of the journey though, as you then need to take the Dart thing up to the airport, and it is up too, as there's a fair elevation change involved. This is reportedly the most expensive railway journey in the UK per mile travelled, as it costs £4.90 for a one-way 1.4 mile trip, although Simon Calder's research suggests that there are more expensive trips available, such as Blackfriars to City Thameslink. Still a good headline though, although this extra leg was included in the fare I'd purchased. So as promised, it was about 1 hour and 40 minutes to get from Folkestone West to Luton Airport. Still not exactly quick, and there are 2 changes to navigate, but it is the quickest airport to get to from Folkestone, excluding London City. So low-cost carriers aren't renowned for their generosity when it comes to the baggage entitlement they give you as part of their base fares. Jet2 isn't too bad, but you'll still end up paying more if you want to take more stuff with you. This is the backpack I'm taking on this trip, and it's got everything I'll need for 3 nights away. And one of the ways I keep the volume of stuff down when I'm on these trips is by using Readly. One app downloaded to a device I'm already going to be taking with me gives me access to over 8,000 magazines and newspapers, all for one low subscription. And it saves me the hassle of having to lug physical publications around with me. There really is something for everyone. Here's what I've got downloaded for this trip. Bricks magazine is a new one. Adult fans of Lego should rejoice. And Wine Enthusiast is new too. Regular viewers of the channel may not be surprised to learn that I enjoy a glass of wine or two every now and again. But there's more to Readly than just that. You can download your publications to read offline on the plane, or perhaps at your destination if you want to avoid those pesky roaming fees. Plus, Readly gives access to the back catalogue of the publications you choose, giving you access to stuff that you couldn't even buy at a newsagent, even if you wanted to. And one account allows you to create up to 5 user profiles, meaning you can share them with your family, and everyone can read their own publications on their own devices while you're away. You'll have so much to read, you'll have to remember to put it down to actually go out and enjoy wherever it is you've travelled to. So if you'd like to see what's offered yourself, scan the QR code that's on the screen now, or click on the link that's in the description and the pinned comment below. Sign up and you'll be able to get 2 months for free. Cancel anytime, so as our American colleagues say, it is risk-free. So thanks to Readly. Let's go and see what Luton Airport is like. So Luton Airport has a particular place in pop culture in the UK. A TV ad kicked it off in 1976. Yes, I am that old, when Lorraine Chase is being chatted up in a tropical location and asks for her Campari to be mixed with lemonade. The chap is not deterred and asks,
"Were you truly wafted here from paradise?"
No, Luton Airport.
You don't get this level of deep background info from Non-Stop Dan. That ad in turn inspired a 1979 song about the place from the otherwise forgotten band Cats UK.
And a geezer stopped and said, "I'll be before I can take you out, Luton Airport. Who are you, Luton Airport?"
To my knowledge, London City hasn't had any songs written about it. Luton Airport has struggled to shift that reputation in the 50 years since, and is still most definitely an airport servicing holiday destinations with a clientele that's less familiar with airport processes than you'll find at other airports. Let's put it that way. The check-in area is quite compact considering the volume of flights, although most low-cost carriers incentivise you to avoid any contact with them to keep their costs down. It looks like most passengers had indeed done everything online in advance of arrival, as it was really quiet. No fast track or premium access for me that day, although it can be purchased, so it was time to see how the security process was. I didn't film it, but it was awful. It wasn't busy, so it didn't take long to get to the scanners, but perhaps 50% of trays were being pulled for secondary screening, despite the scanners being the latest models where everything could stay in your bags. Only one agent was supporting my lane, and the line of trays awaiting further attention was backed up all the way to the scanner, so no bags could move through the scanner until this one bloke took the next tray out of the queue, which freed up space for another tray to come out. And if the next tray through was also flagged for screening, the whole thing seized up again. With each tray he inspected, the guy took whatever item seemed to be the issue and walked, very slowly, to a testing machine at the far end of the terminal. He'd test the item and then walk, very slowly, back to release the bag to the customer. Then he'd repeat this with the next item. My bag actually wasn't pulled, but I was stood there for perhaps 25 minutes until this one bloke had worked through enough trays to allow mine to come out of the scanner. It was laughably bad. Tempers were frayed, and a Luton Airport employee who was waiting for his own stuff to come through the scanner so he could actually go to work elsewhere received some really awful verbal abuse. But no one seemed capable of actually doing anything about it. It was a terrible experience, and I'd probably still be there if my bag had been pulled for secondary. Anywho, No lounge access was included with my Jet2 ticket, but I have priority pass, which gives me two options airside, my lounge and the number 1 lounge. I'd read that they were actually quite similar, although as the my lounge is the larger space, I headed there first. Priority pass lounges in the UK can be really popular, and the app recommends booking access in advance, which essentially means they'll charge you a fee to guarantee access. I'd gambled that mid-afternoon on a Tuesday in October wouldn't be peak time, and my gamble paid off as I was waved straight in. I quite liked it. Look, it's not the Concorde room, and it's still not exactly a massive space, but there were some free seats and the space looked okay. I settled into one of those comfy chairs up the back. The food offering was decent, a Mexican theme with chicken, rice and beans, plus a rather Moorish mac and cheese dish. Salads, and down the end there is a pancake maker, which was really quite popular. Pretty standard paid lounge fare, but if your goal is to avoid having to buy a microwaved toastie on your low-cost flight, it'll really do the trick. There was a manned bar, champagne is available for a fee, and the spirits brands in those optics weren't exactly household names, let's say, but again, it was all perfectly acceptable and did what you needed it to do. You'll not get a Marmite martini here, but many will think that's a good thing. Time passed quite pleasantly. I settled in with some Scran, a G&T, and the latest edition of Wine Enthusiast. I also played Departure Board Bingo, departures to 41 different cities, and I've only been to 24 of them. There were direct flights to 4 new countries for me too, Albania, Kosovo, Moldova and Tunisia, which gives me several good reasons to go back through Luton. A delay was announced to my flight, so I decided to go and check out the other Priority Pass lounge, the number 1 lounge. Again, no issues getting in, and it was very quiet in there. A similar setup with a food offering laid out, probably a wider selection actually, including some cheese and a nut roast. A similar bar setup, although again the drinks offering looked a little more premium. The My Lounge overlooks the main terminal floor, but the number 1 lounge has a view out over a handful of the gates. Overall, the number 1 lounge was the clear winner. I headed off to the gate a little earlier than I might ordinarily, which proved to have been a good move, as there was already quite a queue forming to get to the gate area. There was no priority shortcut, no speedy boarding with Jet2, but the line kept moving and it took around 12 minutes to get through. The holding pen was a bit of a scrum, but I did have Group A on my boarding pass, so I worked my way into a position that might allow me to get on first-ish. It's always best to film the plane before it's filled with people. But when boarding time came, the doors were flung open and it was on for young and old. There was no attempt to enforce group boarding, although there were front and rear steps which made it a bit less of a scrum than it might otherwise have been. Up proper steps to get to the plane, not the ladder Ryanair makes available, and I was on to this 15-year-old Boeing 737-800 that's seen service with Norwegian before joining the Jet2 fleet 6 years ago. The boarding music is the same as the TV ad, which must drive the crew absolutely mad over time. But it's an attractive cabin with the mixed seat colours. Note the meshwork in the overhead bins designed to stop bags falling out. It had the added effect of making it very difficult to get bags in. And into row 3. The seat review won't take long. There's overhead lights and air vents. 29.5 inches of pitch, which is on the low end. Hey, pay an extra 13 quid for more space if that's not enough for you. Not a lot of foot room either if you put your personal item in the foot space. There's no recline and no in-seat power, but there is a tray table that did exactly what you'd expect a tray table to do. There was a pull-down drinks holder and some literature, a safety card, but also a duty-free shopping guide, a menu book and a proper magazine. all of which exist as the revenues they generate exceed the fuel burn from carrying them. And the magazine has a route map, always fun to have one of these and helpful for seeing where I might go next, as transiting Luton Airport really wasn't too bad. One other thing that was missing was window blinds. They have all been removed. I think Jet2 is unique in this regard. It seems to be a way to reduce the plane's weight, but surely it must be really annoying for passengers on sunnier days. No cheers in this video, so you'll have to make do with this. My knees were braced against the seat in front, so there's no room to scooch down the seat, meaning the headrest is functionally useless for taller passengers. But I lucked out when the middle seat remained empty. I ended up with the Euro business class experience, you might say. We pushed back over an hour late in the end, which was blamed on an earlier delay. And up into a Luton sunset. I said you go up from the station to get to the airport, and this is really evident if you take off to the west. You are almost immediately overhead Luton town once you clear the runway. A word on the crew. They were friendly, bubbly and efficient. The captain was actually quite funny. His best line was, "Let me hand you over to your in-flight lead and good luck understanding anything she says." My seat cost me 47 quid, but as is usual with low-cost carriers, it's actually hard to pay that little. It was £36 to check a bag weighing up to 22 kilograms, not a problem for me as I was travelling very light on this flight, as you saw earlier. You can pay an unspecified amount to use those airport check-in facilities, and there were 4 seat choices: £28 for front or exit rows, £15.50 to be up front, or 10 to 12 quid to pick the other seats. The premium to be up front was negligible, so as I really need a window seat to make an interesting video, I added seat 3F to the booking. I could have added travel insurance and food, but I declined both. The base ticket also gave me 10 kilograms of cabin baggage, but there was a £5.50 fee to guarantee I'd be able to take it on the plane. It could end up being checked in if there was no space for it, which means you're guaranteed 10 kilos of baggage at no extra cost with Jet2. So in total this flight cost me £62.50. Here's the menu. 5 quid for a sandwich, 10 quid for a 4-item meal, and I thought that was reasonable enough. £5.75 for a can of beer though was a little steep, and it was over 8 quid for a mixed drink and nearly 10 quid for a premium mixed drink, which I thought was quite pricey. I don't know if Wine Enthusiast magazine would agree that Campo Viejo was a premium wine. We had favourable winds that day, so it was only 2 hours and 15 minutes down to Alicante, and there's really very little more to report. The crew offered food and drinks. More drinks were sold than food, in my earshot at least, and then there was a duty-free service. Night fell, and before I could get too deep into the Bricks magazine back catalogue, it was time to land. And out into Alicante Airport, where we landed 46 minutes late. I've already said that Luton Airport was fine, good indeed, and it could be very good if that security process had actually been managed. I'll happily fly through there again. And Jet2 was good too. It's a low-cost airline, so there's very little to experience apart from a seat, but what they did offer was good. More legroom would be nice, the delay was annoying, and the lack of window shades was just weird, but I'll happily fly them again. Low-cost carriers are great when things go to plan, but they can let you down badly when things go wrong, which is why I tend to avoid them in favour of full-service carriers, even if they cost more. But on routes like this, where Jet2 offers a relatively frequent service and there are limited direct options on full-service airlines, I'll happily accept the risk of flying with a low-cost carrier, as the cost savings can be significant, and Jet2 is a good low-cost carrier. But the low-cost experience continued after landing as we pulled up to a bus gate. 2 buses were provided, but their alignments meant that the rear passengers bus actually pulled away first. So much for picking row 3 to get out of the airport quickly. But I lucked out at the terminal as the entry door was behind us, and I was actually the first to get to the new Euro entry kiosks. The new registration system had gone live a couple of days before this flight, so I think this process registered me, although I don't think that the fingerprint process completed fully. I wasn't asked for thumbprints as part of the process. We'll see in due course if that indeed was the full registration. And you'll still get stamps in your passport until that kiosk process is completely rolled out, which will still take months. And out to get a ride up to Benidorm. So thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and check out Readly through the links below. See you in the next one. Goodbye.